You are perfect beyond measure.
Greetings, brothers and sisters, and welcome to the fifth Sunday after the Epiphany. Our theme this year is Our Sacred Roots, the Sovereign Love of God. And this week, the theme is Your Kingdom Has Come. And we'll look at this text in Mark 1:29 through 39. I want to begin our discussion, though, with the greatest comic in the world, Calvin and Hobbes. And you got Calvin here saying, I'm making a monumental, heroic Stowe sculpture. It will be called the Triumph of Perseverance. Hobbes, it's very inspiring. What will it look like? This? You're through? I'm bored. It's easy to get distracted. It's easy to get drawn away from things. It's easy to give up on big things here. And Calvin he's bored with the triumph of perseverance. This week, we're going to look in this text at Christ's focus, at how the kingdom is coming in his life, and how that is central to everything he says and does, and it shapes and defines everything for him. He keeps that focus. Let's read the text, Mark 1:29 through 39. It's kind of broken up into three parts, so I'm going to handle it in, it's like three scenes. So that's how I'm going to handle it. I'll handle it in the three scenes and talk about them each a little bit. The first scene is right after, if you remember last week, Jesus was teaching in the synagogue, and then he had this encounter with this demon-possessed person and cast the demon out. Everyone was amazed, and this is as soon as they left the synagogue. Verse 29 says, as soon as they left the synagogue, they entered the house of Simon and Andrew with James and John. Now Simon's mother-in-law was in bed with a fever, and they told him about her at once. And he came and took her by the hand and lifted her up. Then the fever left her, and she began to serve them. It's kind of a strange little episode where Jesus heals Simon's mother-in-law. And what's strange about it is that it's in every gospel. All three of the main gospels, the synoptic gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, they all tell this story of Jesus healing Simon's mother-in-law. And just briefly, it shows us that Jesus is not concerned with the venue of what he's doing. He doesn't need all of his work to be public and broadcasted. This is a very intimate healing. He goes over to Simon's house. His mother-in-law is sick. He lifts her up by the hand and heals her. So he's not concerned with the venue. He doesn't need big public shows. And it also shows that he heals completely. He comes and she's been laid up with a fever, and it's not as if he prays for her and she begins to get better. She immediately gets up and starts waiting on them and serving them. And the point here is that she is immediately back to her normal self. She's immediately doing what she would have been doing if she had not been sick. Jesus healed her completely, immediately. Second scene then is that evening after all of these great things have taken place during the day. That evening at sundown, they, being the townsfolk, all these people, brought to him all who were sick or possessed with demons, and the whole city was gathered around the door. It must have been a small city to be able to gather around the entire door. And he cured many who were sick with various diseases, and he cast out many demons, and he would not permit the demons to speak because they knew him. So you see the scene here. He's been teaching with authority, casting out demons. He goes over to Simon and Andrew's house. He heals their mother-in-law, and then the whole city shows up with everybody who has something wrong with them. Jesus encountered a wide variety of maladies in his life. There was nothing too difficult for him. People were sick, people who were blind, people who were demon-possessed, all kinds of different maladies. He dealt with all of them. And Jesus consistently seeks to avoid fame. This is a really interesting point if you look through all the Gospels. He does these amazing things, and he tells people, don't go telling anyone about this. Just go and tell people, tell your friends and family what God has done for you. And here, he will not let the demons speak because they know who he is. And he doesn't want them shouting it aloud like the demon did in the synagogue. He consistently seeks to avoid fame. The third scene then is in the morning. So he had this long day, this exhausting night. And verse 35, in the morning, while it was still very dark, he got up and went out to a deserted place, and there he prayed. And Simon and his companions hunted for him. When they found him, they said to him, "Everyone is searching for you." He answered, "Let us go on to the neighboring towns so that I may proclaim the message there also, for that is what I came out to do." And he went throughout Galilee, proclaiming the message in their synagogues and casting out demons. So Jesus probably, you think after that long day, he'd be taking a well-deserved rest, but apparently he got up before everybody else. He went out to a deserted place and he was praying. And this term that they hunted for him, it's almost like they were aggressively seeking him to take him back. They were like, and they find him and they're like, "What are you doing? Everybody's looking for you. What are you doing out here all by yourself?" Jesus actually sought solitude and prayer. So he has this huge day, these amazing things, and then he seeks out solitude and prayer, even over rest. He goes out to a deserted place and he's praying, and it's about recentering. And Jesus knew what he was about. Jesus knew that he had come out to proclaim the message. When he says he had come out, you might think he means he had come out of the city. But in some sense, there's a bigger sense about his mission. He had come out of heaven into the world to proclaim the message of the gospel, to proclaim the arrival of the kingdom. He knew what he was about, and he was clear on that. And he was not going to be dissuaded from that by what everybody expected of him. These disciples, they come to him, they hunt for him, and they really expect to take him back. They really expect him to be persuaded by the fact that everyone's looking for him and bring him back. But Jesus says, "No, I came to proclaim the message. That's what I'm about." And it's no mistake that is connected with his solitude and prayer. And so the challenge, through solitude and prayer, Jesus stayed focused on his mission rather than the love of the masses. This connection with the solitude and prayer, he was alone with the Father, clarifying in his heart and his mind and his soul what it was he had been sent to do. You almost get this sense from the story that he went out into the deserted place and they came out to him and they just sort of up and left without saying goodbye from there. I mean, I don't know if that's what happened, but that's kind of how it reads. He was so clear and so focused on his mission, and he was not going to be persuaded by the love of the masses and what they wanted from him. He had a job to do, and he went about it. One of my favorite authors is a guy named Thomas Merton, and sometimes he just has a way of putting things that the wording just nails it on the head, and this is one of those times. He says, "We are warmed by fire, not by the smoke of the fire. We are carried over the sea by a ship, not by the wake of the ship. We must find our real selves not in the froth stirred up by the impact of our being upon the beings around us, but our own soul, which is the principle of all our acts." I just love that phrasing. We must find our real selves not in the froth stirred up by the impact of our being upon the beings around us. I think this sort of clarifies our response. Don't be distracted by the froth stirred up by the impact of what you do. Now, God has called each of us, he has gifted each of us, and hopefully as we use our gifts and as we serve God's people and serve Christ, there is impact, there is response, there are good things that are happening. But that is not what defines us. God has given us a calling. We are to stay focused on our calling to Christ and to his kingdom, and even to the specific calling that we have within that. If God has given us something to do, we should not be dissuaded from that. We should not be turned aside from that, even if huge crowds are responding and everybody expects us to do something. That's where Christ was at. But he said, "No, I know what I'm about. I know what I came to do, and that's what we need to go do." And in this too, I think the example of Christ tells us that we need to lean on solitude and prayer, that we need to lean on communion with God. We need one another. We need wise counsel. We need the church. We need all these things, but we also need to be alone with God. We need to be convinced in our soul. We need to be convinced by him deep inside of what he has called us to, of what he has, the burden that he has placed on us, the call that he's placed on our life. So don't be distracted by the froth stirred up by the impact of what you do. Stay focused on your calling to Christ and his kingdom and lean on solitude and prayer. Amen.